Hi there. Welcome to this video. This is one that I've been really thinking about doing for quite a while because it does hit pretty close to me. Um, so just some statistics to start out with. And of course, thank you for joining me today. And for those of you that are subscribers, thank you so much. I'm nearly at 500. I appreciate all of your support. And if you aren't subscribed, please hit the little subscribe button and the like. I would also appreciate a few comments. Just, help my ego a little bit here. Just let me know if these videos are helping you. And as always, uh, want to invite you to go over to my website, and that would be deeprivermentalhealth.com, and check up on my new nonprofit, some things that I've been doing kind of behind the scenes, and let me know what you think. Again, that's Deep River, all one word, mentalhealth.com. So just to start out with, we're going to talk some legalities here. And just to set the stage, I am not a lawyer, barely know how to spell the word lawyer, but I have interacted with them and actually have been pretty deep in the discussions of power of attorney and guardianship. It's something that's affected me and my family, something I had to learn about, kind of boots on the ground, quite a while ago. So those of you that are tuning in likely have some story with regards to mental illness. And just some data before we get into the discussion. So mental illness right now affects 1 in 5 adults in the United States. That seems like a lot to me, but it's true. The National Institute of Mental Health reported that 1 in 5 adults are affected by mental illness. Severity of mental illness can vary, as you all may know. It can go from depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and everything in between. Severe mental illnesses are mental, behavioral, and emotional that can cause significant life impairment and limit major life activities. In fact, just in 2021 alone, 14.1 million American adults had a serious mental illness. 14.1 million. So, severe mental illnesses typically affect thinking, understanding, and perception. For example, somebody with a psychotic disorder, which is kind of where my family is, may hallucinate or experience delusions. A person with bipolar disorder may be vulnerable to scammers during a manic episode. When mental illness becomes severe, it can impair decision making. And that's why we're here. Because watching a loved one experience a mental illness can really be distressing. Family members often worry about access to mental health services and that person's ability to make the right decisions for themselves, right? Uh, People may also worry if their loved one is receiving treatment or the right treatment. Other concerns include access to basic necessities like food, clothing, and housing. So people with these severe mental illnesses, like my daughter, um, are also at risk of financial exploitation. In fact, the National Library of Medicine reports that exploitation is one of the chief concerns for family members of mentally ill loved ones. So we'll talk after about guardianship. We're going to start out with DPOA, or durable power of attorney. And you may be thinking, what's the difference between power of attorney and durable power of attorney? I'm going to talk about that. And again, just to set the stage, I'm not an attorney, but I've dealt with this a lot. So here you go. So when someone you love is struggling with their mental health, the question isn't just how how to help, it's how much control you should have in helping them. And so today we're going to break down two critical legal tools. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. Like I said, I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to give you enough that you can start researching on your own and go with, my opinion, because that's largely what this is. Okay. So guardianship and power of attorney. so that you can understand the differences, the risks, and how to choose which one works best for you. So, which is best? And maybe you've heard of these before: guardianship versus durable power of attorney. So you may have heard of power of attorney, and power of attorney is a different animal. It's kind of the same thing as durable power of attorney, but I'll explain first. We'll tackle that one first because it's one that I chose in my particular situation, one that I've worked with for quite a while. So the options between guardianship and power of attorney may seem very similar, but I mean, in that they both allow someone to step in and make decisions for another person. And that's really what this is all about. But the way they work and the impact they have couldn't be more different. And even the way you achieve either one. One involves a judge and a court, the other one does not. So let's start. Like I said, first of all, we're going to talk about power of attorney. So I kind of mix these together and say, what is power of attorney or a durable power of attorney? You can Google it, super easy to find out. But the durable power of attorney, which is what I'm going to focus on, it's a legal document that a person, while still mentally capable, chooses someone they trust to make decisions on their behalf. Let me give you an example. My daughter, as I told you, was in the hospital and for behavioral issues, having schizophrenia, manic episodes, psychosis, you name it. And during this, we found that we, as her parents, because she was 24 years old, we could not make any decisions for her. In fact, with HIPAA, we couldn't even find out her condition. And it was really hard. And I think I might have told you in one of the previous videos that we dropped her off at one of the behavioral hospitals and they just escorted us out the door. We didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what kind of treatment she was getting. We could not do that. And it wrecked us. I mean, we were emotional, we were in tears, leaving our sweet daughter in this place that was really hard to understand. And we decided that night we've got to do something because we've got to make it so that we can have some sort of capability to help make those decisions or at least be involved in her treatment. So what we did the second time when she was in the hospital is, was when I started learning about DPOA through my brother. And it really came down to my daughter got a little better, got to where she was cognizant and was talking and she was of sound mind and everything. And I just went on legalzoom.com and downloaded the DPOA template, printed it out, and it was, and you can tweak it a little bit if you want to. We didn't. We just took the standard form, and I'll explain a little bit more of what it covers. But my daughter had to sign it. In other words, she was of sound mind. She had to agree, and we kind of explained it to her. Hey, we love you. We don't want to make these decisions. We're not going to go ahead and do anything bad. It's just when you're in a situation that you are out of it, that you are not of a sound mind or in the middle of one of your meltdowns, we have to be able to make decisions for you. And thank heavens, I know it doesn't happen with everybody. She was agreeable. Uh, thank the Lord for that. And we actually had to have her sign it. So she was aware of what she was doing and she signed it. The hospital, and if you don't know this, but the hospital has a notary. And so the notary came literally into the room, the patient room, and watched the signatures, and she stamped it with her notary stamp, and everything was cool. So let me explain kind of what the DPOA does. So with the DPOA, and the reason I like it is the person keeps their rights. My daughter was still able to make her own decisions. She can limit they can limit the decisions that you make. So as her parents, she could say, I'm good, I can do this myself, or rely on us, right? They can also revoke it at any time. My daughter has not revoked hers, but they can go in and say, yep, I'm done, I'm good. If they get healed, if they're finally, out of that mental, illness state, They can revoke the DPOA at any time. Now, one thing that's nice about the DPOA is it remains in effect if the person becomes incapacitated, whereas a regular power of attorney ends. So that's the big difference. Regular power of attorney is mostly, honestly, for financial issues. So you can make financial decisions for somebody when they die and they inherit money or whatever, where the DPOA is more attuned to people's health and mental health care. That's my opinion, right? I didn't go to law school, but that's the big difference is the DPOA remains in effect if they become incapacitated, which was great for us because the only time we really needed to rely on it was when my daughter was in an ambulance in psychosis, full psychosis, and we had to take her to the ER and she couldn't make a decision. And what was great about it was my wife and I were empowered to make those decisions and to help navigate her treatment, so to speak. Now, a DPOA or durable power of attorney ensures that a trusted agent or the person whom they've indicated can handle all the financial or medical decisions. And to be honest, in my situation, most of what we've used it for are for the medical decisions. There's been a few. My daughter's on disability, and so my wife does have access to her accounts to make sure that the money's being spent correctly and so forth. So, and it's nice because you don't have to have any expensive, time-consuming court guardianship. And like I said, you already know guardianship involves the courts and involves legal processes, legal fees, attorneys. It's expensive. Okay. But with us, it was really simple. We downloaded a form, we read it, we filled it out, she signed it, notarized it, and it was there. Um, so if you become incapacitated, um, so the regular power of attorney expires really when you need it the most. So I'm going to tell you right now, that's what we use. We use the durable power of attorney. And in fact, for a long time, my daughter was in and out of behavioral health hospitals here in Utah all the time. We went to different hospitals all along what we call here the Wasatch Front, which is the main population center in Utah. Visited a lot of hospitals, and what we did, my wife would keep copies in her purse. This is how much we had to use it. We finally just started leaving copies in her files at the different hospitals. And then when we had to pink sheet her one time, went into the hospital. We said, look, we have a DPOA on file. They found it. Boom, no problem, no argument. Didn't push us out of the hospital like what happened to us the first time. And it was great. I highly recommend it. And like I said, this is my experience. And that's why I'm doing these videos. I'm basing this on my experience. Okay. So there's the plug for DPOA. So let's move on to the next slide. Some of the advantages, I think I've already talked about these, but it's, some of the advantages, incapacity protection. If you're in a mental illness that leaves you incapacitated, non-durable power of attorney becomes invalid. A DPOA allows me, my wife, to continue acting on my daughter's behalf. Biggest reason right there. It avoids court intervention. You don't need to go to a judge. You don't need an attorney. Um, Without a DPOA, your family may have to petition the court to appoint a guardian or conservator, which is public, costly, and time consuming. You can already tell that I'm not a fan of guardianship. It has its place, and we'll talk about that. Continuous management. It ensures that bills are paid, assets are taken care of if you're mentally or physically unable to make those decisions. So again, regular POA ends on incapacity or death, right? Uh, Durable POA continues to exist. So that is the big difference. So you can Google it right now and go on to, I recommend legalzoom.com. That's what I use a lot. It's pretty inexpensive to download the official paper, and they might be different state by state. Again, we live in Utah, but I am not exaggerating when I said it took me 30 minutes. Downloaded, printed the form, took it into her hospital room. We called the notary. Well, we explained it to my daughter, and she was with it. She understood what she was getting into. Now, I've talked to other people who said, yeah, well, my loved one isn't like your daughter. She was fighting it. She said, no, there's no way that I'm going to sign this. And yeah, that's a problem. If they don't want to sign it, they don't have to sign it. But I have some techniques, approach it with love, explain to them, look, I'm not controlling you and you can revoke it anytime you want. It's just when you're in a situation that you're comatose, you're in the hospital, you can't make your decisions. It's, your dad and I, or I can make those decisions for you because I love you and I will have your best interest in mind. There are a lot of ways that you can approach it, empathize with them, and let them know, hey, if you don't have this, the doctors and nurses are going to make the decisions for you. So there are ways to get around that, but I won't lie. If you have a loved one who is militant, who does not want you to have any control over them, then DPOA really is kind of a moot point. So let's move on to guardianship. So first of all, guardianship is not chosen. It is appointed. Okay. It's imposed by a court. Usually the parents, in my case, the loved one, initiates the guardianship proceedings, the court gets involved, and there's no choice. Your loved one is basically a hostage to the court. Um, it's imposed by a court. A judge decides that a person is no longer capable of making safe decisions for themselves and then assigns someone else to take over. Now, the person who is chosen to do this would be making medical decisions. They'd be exercising financial control, even where the person lives. They can make those decisions. And once guardianship is in place, the individual loses significant personal rights, where with DPOA, they don't. They still have the right to revoke, they still have the right to cancel it. Guardianship, no rights. It's a legally imposed mandate that you now are and belong, so to speak, have this agent who is now making your decisions for you. So this is kind of where things can get complicated. And like I said, I don't want to get into a lot on the guardianship thing. I may do a separate video on it. We'll see. But in the guardianship piece, uh, people mental health isn't always permanent. You may know this. People can have good days and bad days, and everything in between. And imposing guardianship really becomes a very permanent fixture. And I'm only going, I've never done guardianship. I looked into it. We decided DPOA was the best for us. I know people who have tried to get guardianship. And just like I said before, the person, well, let's just put it this way. I knew of a mother who had a son, has a son, who was just very, very reluctant and making some really bad decisions and not capable of managing their own life. The mother started the proceedings with the court to gain guardianship. It was a fight. And she told me this, that it caused such a rift between her and her son. He hated her, thought, she was controlling him, and it did nothing. I mean, she finally accomplished the guardianship. He did not want her as the guardian. They had a court-appointed guardian, and it just caused a lot of problems. So if you have to, and guardianship has its place. If the person is so far down the road, if they are so critical in mental illness, guardianship may be the only thing you can do. So the court has to intervene and get that person the help they need. And that's why I said that I think it does have its place. Fortunately, in my life, I haven't had that situation. But let's just look at some of the pros and cons, some of the differences between DPOA and guardianship. DPOA chosen voluntarily. Guardianship is ordered by a court. DPOA can be customized. Guardianship, lots of legal fees, okay, and mandated by the court. DPOA preserves independence. Guardianship, broad, often total control of their lives. The DPOA, cost neutral, easy to fill out. It didn't cost me a thing. Um, where the guardianship uh, removes all personal rights. They have no rights. And then I put at the bottom of the DPOA that has to be notarized, simple, easy to do. As I said, most hospitals have a notary public. So I think, when should you choose each one? What's best for you? And it's in, I'm not a lawyer. So I highly recommend if you're at this point, con, you know, consult a legal expert, talk to somebody you trust. Um, that's kind of how I decided on DPOA, but check it out yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm only giving you my experience. You can, chat in the comments. Let me know if you've had any experience with it. By the way, I'm just going to remind you, please like and subscribe. That's what keeps this channel going. So when should you choose each one? And there are situations that each one is probably the best option. And in DPOA, I've already said, if your loved one understands their condition and they're of the mind that they can make these decisions and read through it with you and agree, right? And they're willing to plan ahead, you have a good relationship with them, they're okay, they understand what is involved, and they want help, not replacement. Okay, they just want help. And that's when DPOA, and as I said, it's not for the super critical mental illness. Now, guardianship, if people are refusing DPOA and they're at risk, and they really are at risk, like suicidal or hurting themselves or hurting you, then yeah, they'll need the guardianship is the better plan. If they can't recognize reality, recognize consequences, as I said, these are critical mental illnesses, then guardianship is really the way to go. And if there is immediate danger to themselves or others. Okay, so those are the key differences, not or the key reasons. It's not all inclusive, of course. But again, this will hopefully whet your appetite a little bit, get you a little more information than maybe what you had before. Um, and I'll just, when I summarize here in just a moment, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the experiences that I've had in the 14 years dealing with different mental illnesses and hospitalizations and where we had to rely on the DPOA. So, in conclusion, mental health support isn't just about intervention. It's about dignity, trust, and timing. That's why, again, I side with the DPOA because I think it does do a better job of preserving dignity. If you're facing this decision, don't rush it. Talk to professionals, talk to a lawyer, talk to a legal counselor, somebody who specializes in guardianship. Understand your state laws. Those are very easy to find. And most importantly, listen to that person you're trying to help while you still can. As I said, I leaned, and actually we do have the DPOA, the Durable Power of Attorney. I'll give you one experience where the DPOA, it worked kind of, and then we ran into a few problems. With my daughter's most recent hospitalization, which happened right around 2020, she was at a local medical facility, behavioral health facility in Salt Lake City. And we had the DPOA. She was in a very psychotic state. They had her in a room with no windows, padded the whole bit because she was harming herself, threatening to harm others, threatening to harm us. And I think I told you on the last one we talked about ECT, we could not make the decision for her to get ECT treatment. She was at the time 32, I think, 32 years old. And the DPOA only covered to a certain point, but because of the way she was a threat to herself and others, the DPOA didn't quite cover all of that. And so guardianship would have been a better option for us at that point. We didn't get the guardianship just for that one thing. And luckily, if you listen to my story, we had, I think, some divine intervention where my daughter finally signed the release to get the ECT treatment. So it's not all inclusive. Just like anything, there are going to be situations and extreme situations where you may need to reconsider. But all I will tell you is for 99% of the hospitalizations, treatments, emergencies that we have had to go with in my life with my daughter, the DPOA has covered us. And like I said, we went the extra mile and actually left copies of her DPOA literally with every hospital, from Ogden to Payson in Utah. And now when we go in, they already have it, and there's no problem. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, there's so much more you can go through on this. Uh, this hopefully will give you enough information on maybe what decisions you need to make in your particular situation. But I recommend don't ignore it. Especially if you're dealing with a child, a loved one who is of age now that your insurance doesn't cover them anymore. HIPAA now will prevent you from learning things about their condition. And that for us, I think it was around 24 years old. So you'll need something. Otherwise, you'll be just like we were the first time my daughter broke. We took her to a mental health facility and they just turned us out and walked us out the door. We couldn't make a phone call. We didn't know what they were doing to her, and it ripped our hearts out. So don't let that happen to you. Don't get to the point where you're lost and all of a sudden you realize that you have no rights. Uh, Take care of it. Guardianship, if it's extreme, then that's probably the way to go. But in my opinion, DPOA was a super easy solution, easy to do, and not expensive at all. So again, like and subscribe if you would, please leave me some comments. I know a lot of you watch these videos because I see the views and I appreciate that. Hopefully this is helping. But just leave me some comments, hit like, and recommend me to your friends. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And will be another video next week. If you have any suggestions on things you'd like me to cover, please feel free to do so. Thanks a lot.